Jake Morrison stood at the window of the transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The structure was bigger than any city on Earth, made of shining metal and glowing crystals that hurt his eyes to look. This was Kepler Station, home of the Galactic Council. "First time seeing something this big?" asked Lisa Carter, the lead scientist on their team. She joined him at the window, her face showing the same mix of wonder and nervousness that Jake felt. "Makes you feel pretty small," Jake replied. He was Earth's ambassador, chosen to represent humanity in their first meeting with alien civilizations. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy coat. The docking bay was enormous. As their ship settled onto the landing platform, Jake could see dozens of other vessels. Some looked like living creatures with smooth, curved surfaces. Others were sharp and angular, built for war. A few seemed to be made of pure energy, shifting and changing shape as they watched. "Remember the plan," said Rex Butler, their military advisor. He was a big man with graying hair and serious eyes. "We show them what humanity can do. We prove we belong here." Amy Brooks, their medical expert, nodded. "The genetic samples are ready. Our medical advances should impress them." Paul Davis, their technology specialist, patted his briefcase. "I have the latest fusion reactor designs and our new computer systems. They will see that humans are not primitive." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward, leading his team into the unknown. The corridor beyond was filled with beings that Jake had only seen in photographs. Tall, crystalline creatures that looked like living diamonds walked alongside reptilian beings with scales that changed color. Floating energy forms drifted past, their bodies crackling with electric sparks. "The humans have arrived," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The sound was translated into English by their communication devices, but Jake could hear the original alien words underneath. They were led to a vast chamber where hundreds of alien delegates sat in tiered seating. At the center was a raised platform where 5 beings sat behind a curved table. These were the council leaders, representatives of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The central figure was clearly in charge. It was one of the crystal beings, its body catching and reflecting light in beautiful patterns. When it spoke, its voice was like the sound of wind chimes. "I am High Chancellor Vextar of the Zelani. We have called you here to determine if your species is ready to join the galactic community." Jake stepped forward. "Honored Chancellor, I am Ambassador Jake Morrison of Earth. We are grateful for this opportunity." A ripple of sound went through the chamber. It took Jake a moment to realize it was laughter. "Grateful," repeated one of the reptilian council members. Its voice was harsh and grating. "Your species has barely left its home world, and you speak of gratitude." "Perhaps we should let them present their case," said Vextar, though Jake could hear amusement in its voice. "Show us what humanity has achieved." Rex Butler stepped forward first. "Honored Council, humanity has a long history of military innovation. We have developed tactics and strategies that have allowed us to survive and thrive on our world." He activated a holographic display showing human military formations and weapons. The images showed soldiers working together, tanks moving across, battlefields and aircraft providing support. The reptilian being leaned forward. "You call this military might? Your soldiers carry simple projectile weapons. Your vehicles burn chemical fuel. We mastered energy weapons and gravity manipulation 10,000 years ago." More laughter filled the chamber. Rex's face grew red, but he stepped back without saying more. Amy Brooks was next. She presented humanity's medical advances with pride. "We have eliminated many diseases that once killed millions. Our surgical techniques allow us to repair hearts, transplant organs, and extend human life." "How long do your people live?" asked another council member, this one looking like a floating jellyfish made of light. "With modern medicine, humans can live up to 100 years, Amy replied. The chamber erupted in louder laughter. 100 years? The energy being said. "Children of my species live longer than that. We exist for millennia." Amy's confidence crumbled. She gathered her materials and stepped back, her hands shaking. Paul Davis tried last. He showed their fusion reactors, their computer systems, and their spacecraft designs. Human technology may seem simple, but it is efficient and reliable. We have reached our moon and sent probes to other planets. Vextar examined the holographic displays with what might have been curiosity. Crude mechanical devices. You still use metal and circuits. You burn fuel to move through space. We travel faster than light using thought alone. The crystal being stood up, its body shining brighter. The Council has reached its decision. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Your species is too primitive, too violent, too limited in its thinking. Jake felt his heart sink. But surely we can learn. We can grow and improve. Perhaps in a few thousand years, Vextar said dismissively. Until then, humanity is restricted to its home system. You may not expand beyond your sun's influence. We will monitor your progress. Another council member, a being that looked like a walking tree, spoke up. Your species shows concerning aggressive tendencies. You fight wars among yourselves. You damage your own planet. This behavior cannot be allowed to spread. We have also shown cooperation and compassion, Jake protested. Humans help each other in times of need. We create art and music and literature. Primitive emotional responses, Vexitar replied. True civilization moves beyond such basic instincts. When you have evolved past your barbaric nature, perhaps we will reconsider. The session was over. Jake and his team were escorted back to their ship under guard, as if they were criminals. The journey back to Earth was silent. Each member of the delegation sat alone with their thoughts, replaying the humiliation over and over. But as Earth grew larger in their viewport, something changed in Jake's expression. The shame was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Determination. They think they know us, he said quietly to Lisa. They think we are just primitive animals. Maybe they are right, Lisa replied sadly. No, Jake shook his head. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we are pushed. They just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. When they landed on Earth, Jake immediately called for a meeting with world leaders. Within hours, representatives from every major nation gathered in an emergency session. They have underestimated us, Jake told the assembled leaders. They see our differences as weaknesses. They do not understand that our diversity makes us stronger. General Kate Murphy, commander of Earth's Space Forces, spoke up. What do you recommend, Ambassador? We prepare, Jake said firmly. We unite, as one species for the first time in human history. We develop new technologies, new strategies, new ways of thinking, and when the time comes, we will show the galaxy what humanity really is. Captain Sam Harrison, leader of Earth's deep space exploration program, nodded. I have been monitoring signals from the outer rim. Something is moving out there. Something that has the aliens scared. Then we get ready, Jake decided. Because I have a feeling the galaxy is going to need us sooner than they think. The mockery was complete. But humanity's true test was just beginning. 3 years had passed since the humiliation at Kepler Station. Earth looked very different now. The blue and green planet that had once been divided by borders and conflicts was now united under one banner. Cities that had never worked together were sharing technology and resources. Scientists from different countries worked side by side in massive research facilities. Captain Bill Turner stood on the bridge of the Frontier, humanity's most advanced exploration ship. It was not much compared to alien technology, but it was the best Earth could build. The ship moved quietly through the darkness between stars far from the solar system. Captain, we are picking up something strange, reported Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to make sense of the readings. Bill walked over to look at her screen. What kind of strange? It looks like a whole star system just went dark. 3 days ago we could detect 5 planets and a sun. Now there is nothing. No heat, no light, no radio signals. Dr. Tony Garcia, the ship's science officer, joined them. That is impossible. Stars do not just disappear. Maybe the aliens know something about this, suggested Commander Lisa Park, the ship's second-in-command. We should report this to Earth. But before Bill could respond, the ship's alarm started. Ringing. Jenny's face went pale as she stared at her instruments. Captain, there are ships approaching, big ones. I count at least 20 vessels. Are they alien council ships? Bill asked. No, sir. These are different. The design is unlike anything in our database. Through the main window, they could see lights moving toward them. As the ships came closer, Bill felt his blood turn cold. These were not the elegant vessels of the Galactic Council. These ships looked like giant metal insects, all sharp edges and glowing red lights. They are scanning us, Jenny reported. The scan is very powerful. They are learning everything about our ship. One of the alien vessels was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Frontier. A beam of light shot from it and surrounded the human ship. Bill expected to be pulled in or destroyed, but nothing happened. Then a voice spoke in perfect English. The words were cold and mechanical, without any emotion. Biological entity detected. Species classification, human. Threat level, minimal. Ignoring. The beam shut off. The alien ships moved past them as if the Frontier did not exist. Bill watched them disappear toward the inner galaxy, his hands shaking. Did they just ignore us? Lisa asked in disbelief. They did not even consider us worth destroying, Tony said quietly. Bill immediately ordered the ship to return to Earth. The journey took 2 weeks, but it felt like forever. When they arrived, Bill went straight to Earth Defense Command. General. Kate Murphy listened to his report with growing concern. She was older now, with more gray in her hair, but her eyes were still sharp and focused. You are saying these machines just ignored you completely? She asked. Yes, ma'am. They scanned us, decided we were not important, and moved on. It was like being invisible. Kate turned to the large screen on the wall. It showed a map of the galaxy with red zones marking areas where star systems had gone dark. This confirms what we have been hearing from our other sources, she said. Entire civilizations are disappearing. The alien refugees are starting to arrive in council space. Dr. Amy Brooks, now head of Earth's medical research, had been studying the few alien survivors who had escaped the mysterious attacks. The refugees all tell the same story. Machines that consume everything living. They strip planets clean and leave nothing behind. What do the council leaders say? Bill asked. They are scared, Kate replied. For the first time in their history, they face something they cannot understand or control. Their energy shields do not work. Their advanced weapons are useless. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory deep underground, Dr. Tony Garcia was making a discovery that would change everything. He had been studying the scanner data from the Frontier's encounter with the mysterious ships. Jake, you need to see this, he called to Ambassador Morrison, who had become Earth's coordinator for alien affairs. Jake hurried over to look at the computer screen. What am I looking at? The scan data from those machines. I've been analyzing how they work. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has a weakness. What kind of weakness? Tony pointed to a section of code on the screen. They adapt to whatever they encounter. If you shoot them with energy weapons, they learn to absorb energy. If you use gravity weapons, they develop gravity shields. But there is something they have trouble with. What? Simple mechanical systems, basic physics. They are so advanced that they have forgotten how to deal with primitive technology. It is like a master chess player losing to a child who does not know the rules. Jake felt excitement building in his chest. You mean our primitive technology might actually be useful? More than useful. It might be the only thing that can stop them. As if to prove the point, news arrived that day of another disaster. The Zalani homeworld with its beautiful crystal cities had been completely destroyed. High Chancellor Vextar and most of his people were dead. The Mordak, the proud warrior race that had laughed at human military tactics, were being hunted to extinction. Their powerful battleships were turned into scrap metal by enemies they could not even hit. Captain Sam Harrison, now an admiral in charge of Earth's space fleet, called an emergency meeting. The situation is getting worse. Half the galaxy is under attack. The council is falling apart. How long before these machines reach Earth? Asked President Linda Hayes, who had been elected as humanity's first global leader. At their current rate of advance, maybe 6 months, Sam replied. Then we have 6 months to get ready, Jake said firmly. Tony, how quickly can we adapt our technology? We do not need to adapt it, Tony smiled. We need to make it even more primitive. Simple guns, basic explosives, mechanical computers. Everything the aliens think is useless. General Kate Murphy nodded. I have been thinking the same thing. We need to go back to basics, fight like our ancestors did, but in space. As the meeting continued, reports kept coming in. The energy beings called the Vorth had been completely absorbed by the machines. The tree-like Arbori had watched their forest worlds burn. Species that had existed for millions of years were being wiped out in days. But in the middle of all this terror, something unexpected happened. A transmission arrived from the Outer Rim, sent by the few surviving council members. The message was simple, but it would have shocked the aliens 3 years ago. It was addressed to Earth, and it contained 2 words that the galaxy had never expected to say, "Help us." Jake stared at the message for a long time. The same beings who had called humans primitive and barbaric were now begging for their help. "What do we do?" asked Lisa Carter. Jake looked around the room at his fellow humans. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had spent 3 years preparing for this moment without even knowing it. "We help them," he said finally. "Not because they deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. And because," added General Murphy with a grim smile, "we might be the only ones who can." The shadows had gathered. The galaxy was falling, but humanity was ready to step out of the darkness and into the light. The war room on Earth was busier than it had ever been. Admiral Chris Watson stood before a massive holographic display showing the galaxy. Red zones marked where the machines had taken control. The red was spreading like a disease, consuming everything in its path. "The harvester fleets have reached the core worlds," reported Colonel Ryan Price. He was humanity's new military commander, chosen for his ability to think differently. "The Zalani capital is gone. The Mordak home system fell yesterday." Chris nodded grimly. The aliens who had once seemed so powerful were being destroyed with frightening speed. "What about refugees?" "Millions of them. They are flooding into the few safe systems that remain. The council is completely overwhelmed." A communication alert sounded. The face of a Zalani appeared on the screen, but this one looked different from the proud beings they had met 3 years ago. Its crystal body was cracked and dim. Fear showed in its alien eyes. "Admiral Watson, this is Counselor Zanara of the Zalani. I am speaking for what remains of the Galactic Council." Chris stepped forward. "We received your message asking for help." "Yes." The alien's voice was barely a whisper. "We were wrong about your species. Terribly wrong. Our pride has cost us everything." "What exactly are we fighting?" Chris asked. "They call themselves the Harvester Collective, ancient machines that awaken every few million years to cleanse the galaxy of organic life. We thought our advanced technology would protect us. We were fools." The transmission showed images of the devastation. Entire planets stripped of all life, their surfaces covered in gray metal, beautiful cities reduced to empty shells. It was worse than anything humans had ever imagined. "Our energy shields are useless," Zanara continued. "Our weapons are turned against us. Everything we built, everything we achieved means nothing to them." "But you think we can help?" "Your Dr. Garcia contacted us. He believes human technology might be effective against the collective. We are willing to try anything." Chris made his decision. "We will help you, but we do this our way." The first human fleet left Earth 2 days later. Colonel Ryan Price commanded 12 ships built with deliberately old technology. Chemical rockets, nuclear reactors, steel armor, and projectile weapons. To alien eyes, they looked like museum pieces. Their destination was the colony world of Haven, where 50,000 alien refugees were trapped. The Harvester fleet was only hours away. "Remember," Ryan told his crew over the communication system, "these machines adapt to whatever they face, but they have never faced anything like us. Lieutenant Alex Murphy was ready with the ground forces. His soldiers carried simple rifles that fired metal bullets. Their armor was basic steel plating. Their explosives were chemical compounds that humans had used for hundreds of years. "It feels strange going into battle with such old equipment," said Sergeant Beth Collins. "Old does not mean useless," Alex replied. "Sometimes the oldest tricks are the best ones." The Harvester fleet arrived at Haven exactly when predicted. 3 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon. They began scanning the planet, preparing to harvest all life. Then Ryan's fleet attacked. The human ships moved in formation, firing streams of metal projectiles at the alien vessels. The Harvesters tried to adapt their shields, but kinetic energy was different from the energy weapons they were used to. Solid chunks of metal punched through their defenses. "Direct hits on the lead ship," reported Captain Molly Jackson from the Liberty. "Their hull is breached." The Harvesters fought back, but their energy weapons were designed to counter advanced alien technology. Against simple human steel, they were less effective than expected. On the planet's surface, Alex led his troops against Harvester drones that had landed to begin the harvest. The machines were sleek and deadly, but they moved in predictable patterns based on their programming. "They are trying to predict our actions," Alex called out over the radio. "But humans do not follow programs. We improvise." Beth and her squad used a tactic that no alien had ever tried. They pretended to retreat, leading the drones into a trap. When the machines followed, Beth triggered explosives hidden in the ground. The simple chemical bombs destroyed dozens of the advanced drones. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Lisa Grant, who was monitoring the battle from orbit. She was humanity's expert on alien psychology and had been studying the refugees. "The machines cannot understand us," she explained to the alien observers watching the battle. "Your species all follow logical patterns. You develop in predictable ways, but humans are chaotic. We do not make sense, even to ourselves." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Harvester fleet was in retreat. For the first time since the war began, the machines had been defeated. The alien refugees could not believe what they had witnessed. Species that had considered humans primitive had just watched them drive off an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. Major Dan Rogers, the human tactical commander, tried to explain it to the stunned aliens. "You built yourselves into corners. You became too specialized. We stayed flexible." "But your technology is so simple," said one of the Mordak survivors. "Simple works," Dan replied. "Complex systems can be hacked or adapted, but you cannot hack a rock thrown by hand." News of the victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than light. In refugee camps and hidden bases, aliens who had given up hope began to believe that survival was possible. But the war was far from over. The Harvester Collective was regrouping, learning from its defeat. The main fleet was still advancing toward the core worlds. Captain Steve Clark commanded the reconnaissance ship Ranger. His mission was to find the source of the Harvester threat. Deep in space, beyond the reach of any star, his ship detected something massive. "Commander, you need to see this," called engineer Katie White from her station. On the screen appeared a structure that defied imagination. It was a construct the size of a small planet made entirely of dark metal. Energy coursed through its surface like lightning. "That has to be their main base," Steve said quietly. "It is more than that," Katie replied, studying the readings. "This thing is ancient, older than any civilization in the galaxy, and it is intelligent." They were looking at the heart of the Harvester Collective, the original mind that had been consuming galaxies for millions of years. Steve made a difficult decision. "We need to get closer. We need to understand how this thing works." "Sir, if they detect us, they will not," Steve said with confidence. "Remember, we are just primitive humans, not worth their attention." As the Ranger moved closer to the ancient construct, Steve realized that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to be underestimated. The machines had made the same mistake as the aliens. They saw humans as inferior and ignored the threat until it was too late. The final battle was coming, and humanity would face an enemy older than their entire species. But for the first time since the war began, Steve believed they could win. After all, humans had always been good at fighting things bigger than themselves. The combined fleet was the largest gathering of ships in galactic history. Human vessels flew alongside alien survivors, their simple steel hulls next to the elegant curves of Council technology. For the first time, the galaxy was truly united. Admiral Chris Watson stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberty, watching the massive enemy construct grow larger on the screen. Captain Molly Jackson had volunteered to command the ship for this final mission. Around them, the bridge crew worked quietly, each person focused on their task. "Fleet status report," Chris called out. 200 human ships ready for battle, reported Colonel Ryan Price. The alien allies have contributed another 100 vessels. "And our ground forces?" "General Peter Brown has 5,000 Marines ready for the assault," Ryan replied. "They are armed with everything from simple rifles to nuclear charges." The Harvester Collective's main base was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The construct was larger than most moons, its surface covered in weapons and defensive systems. Energy crackled across its hull like a living storm. Dr. Lisa Grant was monitoring communications from the alien fleet. "The survivors are scared. Some of them want to retreat." "I do not blame them," Chris said. "They have been running from this thing for months." A transmission came through from one of the Zelani ships. Counselor Zenara appeared on the screen, his crystal body still cracked but showing more light than before. "Admiral Watson, my people wish to thank you for what you are doing. No species has ever shown such courage." "We are not doing this for thanks," Chris replied. "We are doing it because it needs to be done." "Yes, and that is why the galaxy needs humans. You do what is right, not what is profitable or safe." The fleet moved into attack formation. Human ships took the lead, their simple designs making them harder for the collective to predict and counter. Behind them, alien vessels provided support with their more advanced weapons. "Enemy defenses are activating," warned Captain Steve Clark from the Ranger. His ship had been studying the construct for weeks, learning its weaknesses. Streams of energy shot out from the base, each beam powerful enough to destroy a planet. But the human ships scattered in random patterns, making themselves impossible to target effectively. "The machines are confused," reported Engineer Katie White. "They cannot predict where we will go next." This was humanity's secret weapon. Other species thought logically, followed patterns, made predictable choices. But humans were chaotic by nature. They could change plans in the middle of battle, make decisions that seemed crazy, but somehow worked. The first wave of human ships reached the construct surface. Lieutenant Alex Murphy led his Marines in landing craft that looked like metal boxes with rockets attached. They crashed through the enemy's outer defenses and began the most dangerous mission of the war. "We need to find the central processing core," Alex told his troops over the radio. "Katie thinks it is somewhere in the middle of this thing." Sergeant Beth Collins and her squad fought their way through corridors filled with harvester drones. The machines were deadly, but they moved in predictable patterns. Human soldiers used tactics that made no logical sense but somehow worked. "Throw your weapon to the left, then dive right," Beth called out during one firefight. The confused drones tracked the thrown rifle while Beth and her team attacked from an unexpected angle. Deep inside the construct, they found something that took their breath away. The central core was a massive chamber filled with flowing energy. At its center was a single entity ancient beyond imagination. "So you are the primitive species that has caused so much trouble." The collective spoke directly into their minds. Its voice was like the sound of dying stars. Major Dan Rogers stepped forward, his simple rifle pointed at the energy being. "We are humans, and we are here to stop you." "Stop me?" The collective's laughter was terrible to hear. "I have consumed 1,000 galaxies. I am eternal." "Nothing is eternal," Dan replied. "Everything has an end." The entity tried to take control of their minds as it had done to so many alien species. But human thoughts were too chaotic, too unpredictable. The collective could not understand them well enough to control them. Meanwhile, Commander Steve Clark and Katie White worked frantically to plant their special weapon. It was not an advanced alien device or a powerful energy weapon. It was something much simpler and more dangerous. "The virus is ready," Katie said, connecting her simple human computer to the collective's systems. "But I need to get close to the core to upload it." The virus was Dr. Tony Garcia's masterpiece. It was not designed to fight the collective's advanced systems. Instead, it was designed to confuse them. The program contained millions of examples of human behavior, human art, human emotions, things that made no logical sense but were completely real. "I will cover you," Steve said, raising his rifle. Katie ran toward the energy core while Steve and the Marines fought off waves of defensive drones. The simple bullets from their guns punched through advanced armor that energy weapons could not penetrate. "Upload starting," Katie called out as she connected her device to the core. "But the system is fighting back." The collective realized what was happening. "You cannot destroy me with your primitive technology." "We are not trying to destroy you," Steve replied, firing at another drone. "We are trying to teach you." The virus flooded the collective's systems with human data. Music that followed no mathematical patterns. Art that expressed emotions instead of logic. Stories of people making sacrificial choices that benefited others instead of themselves. The ancient mind began to malfunction. It had spent millions of years consuming logical, predictable species. But humanity was neither logical nor predictable. The virus showed the collective something it had never encountered: true chaos combined with genuine compassion. "What is this?" the entity screamed. "These patterns make no sense." "That is the point," Katie said, completing the upload. "You cannot adapt to something that has no pattern." The collective systems began shutting down. Across the galaxy, Harvester fleets stopped moving. Drones collapsed where they stood. The ancient hunger that had consumed countless worlds was finally satisfied by something it could not digest. In the command center, the energy being flickered and grew dim. "Impossible. I am perfection. I am order." "No," said Steve, lowering his weapon. "You are just very old and very tired. It is time to rest." The collective's final words were almost human. Perhaps I was wrong about organic life." The construct went dark. The war was over. President Linda Hayes stood before the reformed Galactic Council on Kepler Station. The chamber was different now. Humans sat alongside aliens as equals, their voices carrying the same weight as species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "The Harvester threat is ended," she announced. "But more importantly, we have learned something valuable. Diversity is not weakness. It is our greatest strength." Ambassador Jake Morrison, older now but still proud, watched as human colonies were approved throughout the galaxy. The species that had once been banned from leaving their solar system were now welcomed as partners and protectors. Outside the station, human children played with young aliens, learning from each other, growing together. The universe that had once mocked Earth now looked to humanity for guidance and hope. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to approach it like a human.